The issues that when we first started out down there, four big ones that, I say there were four big ones, they were identified as emergency items by our governor, so I guess there has to be four big ones. CPS was a major item. I think in the end we came out with a good solution. Time will tell, because we made such significant changes in the structure and the money and the way about doing it, and we're dealing with the most precious item out there, and that is children. And along the way, it was really a difficult issue to tackle, because it was one in which there were some very passionate people on two ends of the spectrum that had a strong case to be made for where fixes needed to occur, but they were diametrically opposed to each other. And what that was on one side of it, you had the group that said, CPS is just not doing its job, it's not getting in there soon enough, it's not protecting the kids quick enough, getting them into a safe environment, they need to move faster and do more. And then you move to the other end of the spectrum, and you had those, CPS moves too fast. They get in there and they take kids away from families they have no business taking kids away from, and they're not letting other parts of the family get involved in it. They need to back off and do less. So that's where we started. And besides, there's not enough money to do either one of those. Well, I think we came together with a plan that addressed both parts of that. And the changes made will only tell as time goes on, as we monitor it. It's something we cannot ever let it get as bad as what it was before. The second one that I would agree with was an emergency item, sanctuary cities. It's one that we talked about, and it just absolutely floors me that we would have to even write a law that tells law enforcement to obey the law. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But one thing about it is, it was a bill that was probably had more false information put out about it than just about anything else out there. A lot of bills were misunderstood, but this one actually had a lot of misinformation. And for those that don't understand what we're talking about when we talk about the Sanctuary Cities bill, it's real simple. All it does is require that the jail, when it has an inmate that it's ready to release, and the federal government through ICE has identified that person as a person of interest to them that they want to take into custody when they're released, and they just say, give us 48 hours to get there and get that person. That's all they were asking for. And we were having sheriffs that were refusing to do that and turning loose criminals. I'm not talking about parking tickets. I'm talking about criminals for murder, aggravated assault, rape, child molestation, all the really bad stuff. And so this law simply says, Sheriff, you got to hold them for that 48 hours for ICE. Didn't add to it, didn't make it longer. It just said, do what you're supposed to be doing. And it put a little teeth in it. It started out with a bill that was just going to be a fine that would be taxpayers paying it. Well, I will tell you that it ended up with a little bit of jail time if they break that law. So they're actually looking for it. But what was overlooked in it was what it does for those that are here living in the environment, that they're here illegally, but they are just working and raising a family. Today, their crime rate is probably higher than any other part of society. And the crimes don't get reported because people are afraid that something will happen to them if they're going to report the crime. Well, this bill actually provides them immunity. If they call in, report someone for molesting a child, for rape, for aggravated assault, robbery, whatever it is, they will be immune to any kind of prosecution in there. So it gives them the opportunity now to be able to report the crime. So I think we came out with a really good bill. The governor signed it into law, and I think we're going to find a real improvement in Texas as a result of it. The third one he had was one that I couldn't quite see the emergency piece of it, but it was very important, and that was an ethics bill. And the ethics bill was really aimed at legislators to provide some really tough guidance or some specific guidance to reduce or minimize as much as possible the appearance of any impropriety in what a legislator does while they're in office that they might benefit from later. And it also provided that if a legislator is convicted of a crime while in office, that they will lose their pension when they go to jail. I mean, right now we've got some legislators sitting in jail that are taking your money and getting it as a pension. So they'll put an end to that. The fourth one was one that I was kind of one of the last one to come to the party and with it, and that was Convention of States. It was an issue that, of course, the governor had written a book about it. He was very high on his list. I could never really get real excited about it, but it was one that the people that were very passionate, those who were for it, were just as passionate as they could possibly be, and they had another group just as large that were passionately opposed to it. In the end, I mean, I said, you know, we have a constitution now that isn't being followed. We got a good constitution. If we just followed what we have, we wouldn't have there's some tweaks that could be made. There's some issues about the judicial side and some things. But the problem is, it's not being followed grossly. And so I could never understand how adding another section to the Constitution, another amendment, was also going to magically make everybody obey or follow what was already there. So it was kind of like an exercise in futility as far as I was concerned. And of course there was the issue of the risk of the runaway convention. I finally convinced myself through a lot of study and reading that was a very, very low risk item, and to sit and do nothing didn't make a whole lot of sense. So it was worth making an effort, the possibility we might come out with something better. And so those are the four items. They passed out of the Senate pretty quickly.